Shankaram, Siva Shankaram. In this video, we look at the Sthalapuranam of two temples that are part of the famous Navagraha tour or the Navagraha temples of Tamil Nadu. Now, the reason that Sthalapuranams are shared is for us to understand the greatness of our temples and also the culture that we had in India or in Tamil Nadu at that time. So, going to each of these temples in the mind is as powerful or sometimes even more powerful than going to these temples in person. So, the two temples we're going to look at, one is the Kailasanathar Temple in Thingalur, that is part of the Chandra energy or the moon. The second one is the Suriyanar Temple in Tirumangalakudi, which is part of the solar energy, the sun energy. The other Navagrahas in this package are Kanjanur Agniswara Temple, that is for Shukran, Vaidiswaran Koil for Chevvai, Tirunageshwaram for Rahu, Tirunallar for Sunny or Saturn energy, Kirperumpallam Naganatha Swami for Ketu, Abat Sahayeswarar Alangudi Guru, that is Dakshinamurti, Tiruvenkadu Svedaranyeswarar for Buddhan. So you would have already identified by the names that out of all the 9, there are 8 temples that are dedicated to Shiva, where the presiding deity is the Navagrahas, but only the Suriyanar temple is not a Shiva temple. It is dedicated wholly to all the Navagrahas or mainly to Suryan. So we'll start with Thingalur Kailasanathar. So the Kailasanathar is situated in a village called Thingalur, which is 4 kilometers from Thiruvayyar and about 18 kilometers from Kumbakonam on the Thiruvayyar-Kumbakonam stretch. So it is one of the Navagraha temples, as we already said, and dedicated to the Chandra energy. It was built by the Pallava king Rajasimha in the 7th century, and the Gopuram, which is 5-tiered, was constructed by the Cholas between the 10th and the 12th century. Now, one very famous feature about this temple is that twice in a year the moon's rays fall on the Shiva, on the Kailasanathar, for 3 consecutive days. So, one day before the Paurnami, on the Paurnami day, and one day after the Paurnami, that is the full moon day. Now, it is not a Padalpechasthalam, but it is called a Vaipusthalam. So, what is a Vaipusthalam? That is, there is a mention of this of this city in other Devarams that the saints have sung. So, for example, one Devaram by Sundarar is Thingalur Tiruvadirayan Pattinamur Nangalur Narayur Nanina Nisait Nalur. So, what is the meaning of this? It's just making a mention of Thingalur, Tiruvadirayan Pattinam, then Narayur, Nalur. So, these have attained great fame. Then there is another one that Tirunavakarsar has sung. Terurar Mavurar Thingalurar Tigal Punsadai Mudimel Tingal Sudi Karura Nindra Kadanichayar Kandalda Nedumadum Kalanda Tondrum. So here what he is talking about, he is saying the people from Terur, Mavur, Thingalur and all other cities where Shiva has got Sadai Mel Mudi. So he's got Sadai on him and he's got a crown on his Sadai. He's just describing Sivan here. But the Devaram was just sung to say that there is a mention of Thingalur here. So what are the deities of the Kailasanathar? Obviously, I said it's a Shiva temple. So there is Kailasanathar as a Shivalinga. The Chandran, so there is a separate shrine for Chandran and he is the moon energy. Periyanayagi is the goddess. Chandikeshwara has got 2 consorts. Dakshinamurti is quite a unique idol here. He is sitting with an olechudi, so that is palm leaves, and a kamandalam. And Appoodhi Adigal, so this was the birthplace of Appoodhi Adigal, one of the other 63 Nayanmars. And they've got an idol of him, his wife and his sons, along with Appar, that is Tirunavakarsar. And because Chandran is there, there has to be Suryan, so Suryan is also sitting in this temple. So what are some of the prayers and festivals that are celebrated here? So first we'll go with the prayers. So you know Chandra rules the mind. So people pray here for excelling in education because of the mind. So there has to be stability in the mind, and all obviously also for any obstacles, to remove any obstacles in marriage proceedings, and also to get any boons for childbirth, that is to beget a child. Now when there is a Chandra dosham, you normally have dosham towards your mother, that is your mother gets sick, or you'll have any mental instabilities, you have any skin or nervous problems, you'll have diseases like jaundice, you'll have even neer, as they say, which is fluid accumulation. So praying to Chandra will remove all those bad influences of the moon. So any of these doshas that I mentioned before will go away. Any mental sorrows, mental instabilities will automatically go away. So one festival celebrated here is that of rice feeding, or what they call Annaprasanam, for a child. So about 4 or 5 months after the birth of the child, they come here and then they give any kind of, they give rice or any solid food. Now what they do is they ask the child to look at the moon and a cow. So why they do this, I'll explain. Now before this, normally in the past, it didn't start with Annaprasanam. It started with what is called Nishkramanam, and then only there was Annaprasanam. So Nishkramanam is the ritual of taking the child out. You see, after the childbirth, the child does not go out for at least 3 months. So only after that there is a rite or a ritual done, and then the child goes out. So the motive behind this sanskaram, or the sanskar as they say, is to increase the lifespan and to beget wealth. So the child should get wealth. So this is performed, as I said, in the 3rd month, and in the 4th month what they do is they ask the child to look at fire, a cow and the moon at any auspicious time. So why they do this is because they tell the whole nature, they tell the sun and the moon and the fire and the cow and the sky that, oh God, oh guardians of all the 8 directions, that is the Dikpargal as they say, please protect my child and please give him everything in this world. So you normally say to the fire, because as I said before, that for Brahmins they worship the fire, because through the fire whatever offerings that you give goes to all the celestials. They worship the moon because the moon is part of your mind. The moon controls your mind, and cow is nothing but Mother Lakshmi, or Kamadhenu as you say. So she is a giver of everything. She is the mother who gives you everything. So that is why if you worship her, she will give you wealth and she will give you good life. Then only there is the Annaprashanam. So why do they do that sanskaram or that sanskar? That eliminates the defects generated by the swallowing urine and the feces when the child is in the mother's womb. So here in this temple, I believe that they do the Nishkarmanam and the Annaprashanam as one ritual. That's why they are looking at the moon and they are looking at the cow. Otherwise, normally in the past, it's normally the Nishkramanam is first and then only the Annaprashanam follows after a few months. So let's come to the Suriyanar Koil before going into the legends of these 2 temples. The Suriyanar Koil, the temple, was built only in the 12th century, so about 1100 AD, and this was done during the reign of Kuluthanga Chola Deva, and it was called Kuluthanga Chola Martanda Alaya or Martanda Temple. So the temple actually has a gigantic tower with 3 tiers and 5 domes at the peak. So there is also a holy tank. It is called Surya Tirtham, and people come here and dip in this Tirtham. The current granite structure that you see around the Surya Bhagwan was maintained or supposed to have been built by the Sri Vijaya king. Now Sri Vijaya is somewhere near Indonesia. So it is very customary, and now actually it is practiced quite fervently, that one would go to the Prananadeshwara temple in Tirumangalakudi, which is 2 kilometers from the Suriyanar Koil, and then only come here. So you'll know, when we come to the legends, you'll understand why this practice is done. This is fully dedicated to all the Navagrahas, unlike the other Navagraha temples, as I said, where they are the sub-deities. So who are the deities here? Suriyanar. So Suryan. Suryan, the sun, is with a lotus in his hands and he is smiling and he is facing towards the west. And he has got a horse in front of him because horse is his vehicle. And his two consorts, one on the left and one on the right. One is Usha Devi and one is Pratyusha Devi. So Pratyusha is none other than Chaya Devi, also she is called. And there is Guru Bhagwan who is in front of him. The reason why they say that is because Surya, his prakasham or his light, his energy is so much. So to reduce some of that light so that all the devotees can come and worship him, you have Guru Bhagwan who kind of reduces his light so that the temperature is just enough for the devotees to come and worship him. Obviously there are other Navagrahas, I said it's a Navagraha Sthalam. So the other Navagrahas are also there, but they are without their Vaganas or without their vehicles. So as is said in the Surya Ashtakam, Sapta Ashwarathamaarudham Prachandam Kashyapa Atmajam Shweta Padmadharam Devam Tam Suryam Pranamamyaham. So salutations, or I salute to the Surya who is mounted on a chariot driven by 7 horses. So you understand now why he has got the horse in front of him, because he sits on the 7 horses. He is excessively energetic. That's what I said. That's why Guru Bhagavan is sitting opposite him, reducing his energy a little bit or reducing his temperature a bit. He is the son of sage Kashyapa, Kashyapa Atmajam. Then you are the Deva who holds a white lotus. So Padma Shweta, so Shweta Padmadharam, right? And I salute you, O Surya Deva. Also, Muthuswami Dikshitar has also sung in his Surya Murte Namostute Sundara Chaya Adipate. So in one of his lines, what does he say? Somadi Graha Shikhamane. That means Surya is the ruler of all the planets and the moon. So why am I talking about this Muthuswami Dikshitar song? That's because it relates to Surya and it relates a lot to the Navagrahas and the structure of this particular temple. He is also called Sarasa Mitra. That is one of the lines in that song of his. So Sarasa is nothing but lotus. So he is a friend of the lotus. So why is he holding a lotus? Because you remember he said he's got 7 horses. These are nothing but our 7 chakras. So, and each chakra is nothing but a lotus. So he also helps us to get to this Sahasrara and then become divine. So what is another line from his song? Bhukti Mukti Vitaranat Mane. So Bhukti is possession of materialistic values. Mukti is salvation. Vitarana is one who gives. Atmane is the soul. So the soul who gives both materialistic progress, materialism, as well as spiritual progress. So that's why I was saying the 7 chakras and talking about Surya helping us get spiritual wisdom. Worship of the sun is dated back to Ramayana times, when Agastya Maharishi gave the Aditya Hridayam to Lord Rama. When Rama was very worried in the battlefield on seeing Ravana. So Agastya talks about the laurels of sun god. He says you pray to the sun god. And you will see that this Aditya Hridayam fits into the descriptions that I've just mentioned. So what does Agastya say? He says, Shrunu Guhyam Sanatanam. Sanatanam is eternal. Guhyam, secret. Shruno, hear. So listen to this eternal secret. And then he's talking about all the sins. So by sins here, we mean more, okay, planetary effects, the sins that we are undergoing. So the planetary effects like Yelra Shani, that is 7.5 Saturn period that we say, or any adverse effects of planets. So he says, Aditya Hridayam Punyam Sarva Shatru Vinashanam. So these are the enemies. Our enemies are because, planetary positions have a lot of effects on us. And one is giving us enemies. So enemies can be what? Like ignorance or any sins like that. I mean, enemy is not really a physical enemy. So it can be anything, mental worries. These are also enemies. So Sarva Shatru Vinashanam, it destroys all the enemies. Then Tamo-Ghnaya, Tamas Ghna is to destroy, Tamas is ignorance. So Tamo-Ghnaya. Sarva Mangala Mangalyam, that is all round welfare it gives. Sarva Papa Pranashanam, Papa is the sins. Chinta Shoka Prashamanam, Chinta and Shoka. So Chinta is the worries, Shoka is also the same worries. It destroys all those worries. Then he says towards the end, Yenam apatsu krichreshu kantareshu bhayeshu cha. So bhayam, that is the fear. Kantaram is in the forest when you are afraid. Krichra is hardships. And Yenam is you pray. Apat is calamity. So during all these calamities, hardships, and when you're afraid in the forests, then you come and pray to the sun god. So he says, Kirtiyan Purushakascha Navasidata Raghava. Na Avasida. Avasida means you will not sink down when you pray to him. That's what he says. Then how does he describe him? He says, Rashmi Mantam. He's filled with so much of rays and tejas. Tejasvi Rashmi Bhavana. Tejas is fiery energy. So this is what I was saying when I was describing Surya Bhagavan. He's got fiery energy, which he manifests in his rays, Rashmi Bhavana, which he manifests. Mahateja Rakta Sarva Bhavodbhava. So he's got that fiery energy, Mahateja, that gives rise to the world's existence. Bhava. So he gives rise to that world's existence, which is Bhava. Then Sapta Saptir Marichiman. So Saptir is a horse, and Sapta, 7. So he's got 7 horses. Marichiman, that produces that light. Nakshatra Grataranam Adhipo. So Adhipa is the Adhipati, the presiding deity. Nakshatra is the constellation, so the nakshatras. Graha is the planets, and stars, Tara. So what are some of the prayers that people come here to do? One is when they are having the Eldra Sani, as they say, that is 7.5 Saturn period, they come here to do a lot of pujas. They come here to get relieved from any adverse effects of the planets. So when they are doing these pujas, they come here to remove all the doshas. Okay, and the pujas are sometimes for 2.5 months. That's about 78 days, as they say. And they stay here and do these pujas for 12 consecutive Sundays. And they call that Talavasam. So they also perform Nadi Pariharam, that is any problems in their Nadi, right? They would have gone to a Nadi astrologer, and the astrologer would have told them that, okay, you have these doshas, so they come here to get rid of those doshas. They come here to do Navagraha Homam, because you first appease these deities, then these deities take you further to the Shiva, to the Parvati, etc., to the Adhipatis, and then they go and tell that, okay, you have done all these pujas and try to reduce your doshas. They also come here to do Surya Archana. Then other practices here are they do Tulabharam. So if they want to give produce like wheat, jaggery, or any of their farm produce which is equivalent to their weight, then the person will sit on one of the balances, one of the plates of that balance, and the others they'll keep the farm produce, and that is how they make that offering to Surya Bhagavan. Also here, just as in the Kailasanathar, they come here to pray for getting a child, so to beget a child, and they offer cradles for that. So now let us go to the legends. So the legends mostly are for the Kailasanathar, but there is one legend which is quite common to both the Suriyanar Koil and the Chandra Temple. So legend 1, which is for the Thingalur Temple. So waxing and waning of the moon because of Rahu and Ketu. So you know that the Chandra Bhagavan, he was actually created from what is called the Parkadal. That means what? When they were churning the ocean, and Vasuki was used as the churner and Mandara was the mountain. Then the poison came out and all the other gods also came out. So one of the gods who came out was the Chandra Bhagavan. So when the poison came out, because Vasuki could not handle it anymore, then obviously Shiva took that Alahala poison, and the Amritam also came out. When the Amritam came out, they were being given to the Devas. But then obviously one Rakshasa, which is Surya Bhanu, he came here disguised as a Devata, and he sat between Chandra and Surya. And before drinking that poison, Surya and Chandra, they found out that he is actually an Asura. Vishnu came to cut his head, but he had drunk 1 or 2 sips of that Amritam. And that is why he also became an immortal. So when he was cut, so Rahu became the head and Ketu became the body. It got attached to a snake. So Rahu got attached to a snake tail, as they say, or a snake body, and Ketu got attached to what is called just the snake head. Now, because of this enmity between Rahu, Ketu and Surya Chandra, we always say that Rahu either goes behind the sun or he goes behind the moon. So, he keeps on going, it seems. So, the legend is that he keeps on going over the moon, he keeps on trying to eat the moon, and that is why the moon fades, or it wanes and then it waxes. That is, you have the Valarpirai, the Theipirai first and then the Valarpirai. And when Rahu actually fully snaps the moon, or he takes it into himself, then it is on a full moon day, then you call it a lunar eclipse, because you do not see the moon. So, let us look at the second legend, which is exactly the same waxing and waning of the moon, but now because of Dakshan's curse. So, Daksha Prajapati, as you know, he had 27 daughters, and Chandra married all the 27 daughters. He probably had more daughters, but Chandra married only 27 of his daughters, and he was very biased to Rohini. Now, the daughters came and complained to Daksha. Daksha had a chat with Chandra, but Chandra did not bother, he did not heed, and so Daksha gave him a curse. So, now Chandra came to pray to Lord Shiva, because he was going to, the curse was basically to lose his luster and glamour. So, after doing a lot of penance, Lord Shiva gave him darshan, and he said that he will help him. Now, Lord Shiva also had given a boon to Daksha, that he would always protect Daksha, or he would always listen, or he would not go in the way of whatever Daksha says. So, obviously, now he cannot just protect Chandra like that. So, he comes up with a plan, saying that, okay, for 15 days your luster will go, basically you are waning, okay, that is Theipirai, and 15 days after you will wax. So, that means the luster will grow back, it will come to full moon, and then again the same cycle will go on. So, basically he has played a very nice plot, or very intelligently he's actually taken care of Daksha's curse, and he's also listened to Daksha, he's also helped Chandra Bhagwan. Now, sometimes in North India they say that this whole incident happened in Somnath, and the Swayambhu Lingam in Somnath is the Linga, or the Shiva, who gave darshan, who gave vision to Chandra. But in the south they say that it has happened in Thingalur, and in Thingalur only he came and worshipped Shiva. So, now let us go to legend 3, which is Appoodhi Adigal and Tirunavakarsar, which is why Thingalur actually really got a lot of fame. So, there used to be a merchant called Appoodhi Adigal, and he had lot of trading businesses in that village, and he was a very staunch devotee of Tirunavakarsar. So, he had named everything, every stall or every trading business that he had under Tirunavakarsar. He called it Tirunavakarsar itself. So, one day when Tirunavakarsar came to Thingalur on one of his temple pilgrimages, he was surprised to see that every establishment that he had his name in it. So, he asked around, and as to who was this, why had this person named it after himself or after Tirunavakarsar, and he somehow comes to Appoodhi Adigal's home. So, he comes here and he asks Appoodhi Adigal, okay, why have you named all these establishments of yours after someone called Tirunavakarsar? So, he does not reveal his identity first. So, Appoodhi Adigal actually rebukes him, he scolds him. He says, what do you know about my guru? Do you know how great he is? And then he asks, okay, who are you? So, then only Tirunavakarsar says, oh no, I am just a normal person. I was actually into Jainism, and then I had this colic pain or Sulanoi, and I sang one song and Lord Shiva actually helped me. Then only Appoodhi Adigal realized that this was none other than Tirunavakarsar. He fell at his feet and called him for a grand feast. So, Tirunavakarsar said, okay, I'll just go to the temple, I'll go to Kailasanathar Temple, I'll visit him and then I'll come. So, these people are making the preparations for that. So, Appoodhi Adigal, his wife and his son, etc. So, he sends his son actually to get plantain leaves or the banana leaves, because on that only they normally eat. So while taking these banana leaves, while cutting the banana leaves, he didn't happen to see a snake, and the venomous snake actually bit him. Now, not coming and telling his parents, he just came and pretty much fell dead, because he just said, I cut the banana leaf, and that's it. He never told his parents that he had been bitten by a snake, but he just fell dead like that. But the parents were very intelligent. They understood what had happened with him. So they rolled him in a mat and kept him there at the backyard. And because they didn't want to tell Thirunavakarsar that something like this had happened, and they didn't want to delay his meal also. So Thirunavakarsar was sitting there. They came now to serve him the food. Normally what Thirunavakarsar would do before eating food is he would take water, then he would smear ash, he would give it to everyone. So that Vibhuti and all he would do, and then only after that he would eat. So the first thing he does, he gives the ash to, obviously he puts it on himself, then he gives it to Appoodhi Adigal, he gives it to his wife, to Appoodhi Adigal's wife, and then he calls the eldest son. So Muthu Thirunavakarsar, that is what is his name. Now these people say that, okay, no, he's not available, he's not there, he's gone out, something they say. He is not able to understand why is he saying that. No, he said, I saw him, definitely he should be there. So he calls him again. He says, no, you please call him. Then only they narrate the whole story. And then Appar, that is Thirunavakarsar, actually scolds him, say, why didn't you tell me? This is not correct, right? Then he goes, he says, you show him to me. Then he goes and sings this very beautiful padigam, Ondru Kolam. He does not even pray in that song, he does not even pray that the poison should go. He just only praises Shiva so much that Shiva melts in that, and then the poison is relieved of that poison, and the boy gets up. Then after that he gives him the ash, and he tells him to sit with them, and they all eat lunch, or they eat that meal. So Appoodhi Adigal, and then after that he stayed with Appoodhi Adigal for quite some time, for about 10 days before going on his other pilgrimages. So Appoodhi Adigal is an example of what is called Visheshadhara service to the Lord. So just like you would have known in Ramayana, Shatrughna did service only to Bharata. He didn't even do service to Rama. But Bharata in turn did service to Rama. So that is why it is called a Visheshadhara service. And Appoodhi Adigal did that and then got the feet of Lord Shiva. So something really great. Now let us come to a very common legend between the Suriyanar Koil and the Thingalur Koil, which is Kalava Muni, the planets and the curse. And through this legend you will understand about the Prananadeswara temple. So as per the Hindu legend, there was once a sage called Kalava or Kalava Muni, and he was suffering from serious ailment called leprosy. So he prayed to all the Navagrahas because he thought he could, if he pleases the Navagrahas, his leprosy would go. So what the Navagrahas did was they went and offered him a boon. They said that because they were so pleased by this devotion, and they even cured the sage, so they offered that boon to them. So now what happens is, because they offered the boon, they are not supposed to offer boons. They are supposed to go and recommend names to Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, etc. because they are only the protectors. They cannot offer boon. So Brahma got angry. He said, now you take that leprosy, because he curses them. He said, you went and did this, so you take it. So now all the planets lost their luster. So they got that leprosy. And he sent them to the Vellirukka Vanam. So Vellirukka is one white kind of flower. It's a wild flower, but it's white in color. And they go to this jungle, and then they pray to Lord Shiva. So they are quite fervent in their prayer. So Lord Shiva comes out. I mean, he shows them, he gives them the darshan. That Lord Shiva that came out is the Prananadeswara, that is in Tirumangalakudi. And this whole Vanam is called that Vellirukka Vanam. So he comes and then he gives them a boon. So he says, he first of all relieves them of their curse, and he tells them that don't worry, you will get a sthalam for yourself. So that is what is this Suriyanar Koil. It is also believed that the other energies, they were not exactly at the same place, but they were in different places, and that is why they could have been strewn all over the place, and that's why you have these Navagraha temples. So, and now you understand why people first go to the Prananadeshwara temple, which is 2 kilometers away, and then they come to the Suriyanar Koi. So, hope you have really enjoyed understanding the Sthalapuranams and understanding the greatness of these temples. So, please visit these 2 temples when you have the time. Shankaram, Siva Shankaram.